story time about how my date turned out to be a serial killer. Disclaimer, this is not my story time. It was sent to me on Instagram. I recently got promoted at my job and had to move to a new city. I didn't know anyone in this new city, so I decided to sign up for some dating apps. Within a few days, I was already talking to some guys. One of them in particular was really nice, and I could tell he was really trying to get to know me. So I gave him my phone number. From there, we texted for about a full week. He would say good morning and good night. He would always ask me questions and act like he was just really interested in me. I decided that I really liked him and I told him. That's when he asked me if I wanted to go on a date, and of course, I said yes. We decided to meet up for dinner during the weekend. On the morning of the date, I sent him a text message saying good morning. I didn't hear anything back from him. At first, I thought maybe he's just stuck at work. An hour before the date, I still hadn't heard from him, so I decided to send him a text, and he did not reply. So of course, I ended up going to dinner by myself anyway. But when I got home, I had a message from him apologizing for standing me up. When I asked him what happened, he told me that he got stuck at work. And I decided to believe him. I had no reason not to trust him. I decided to give him a second chance when he asked me out again. The following weekend, we decided to have a picnic. But same thing, a few hours before the date, I still hadn't heard from him. That's when I sent him a message asking him if he was going to show up or not. And I didn't hear anything from him for a few hours. Finally, he messaged me once again saying that he got stuck at work. He begged me for another chance, and I said yes. A few days later on the news, I saw that 2 women had disappeared after going on a date with some guy. And both of the women had disappeared in the area that I lived in. When I told my parents about it, they urged me not to go on any dates. So I decided not to tell them that I actually had a date that week. The following day, we meet at the restaurant. As soon as I see him, he's really sweaty and nervous. And when he hugged me, he smelled really bad. As in B.O. I didn't want to judge him, but I asked him if he was okay. That's when he told me that he'd been working every single day nonstop. Then I look at his fingernails and they're full of dirt and what seemed like some red stuff. I asked him what he did for work again, and you'll never guess what he said. He said he was in mergers and acquisitions. Then he laughed. This is where it gets scary. Part 2 is up. 2 of how my date turned out to be a serial unaliver. Disclaimer, this is not my story time. I was sending me on Instagram. On the date, I noticed that his fingernails were dirty, he was really sweaty, and he smelled really bad. When I asked him what he did again for a living, he told me he was in mergers and acquisitions. Then he started laughing maniacally. He told me it was a joke and it was a line from one of his favorite movies, American Psycho. I tried to laugh it off with him, but I just couldn't get past his whole demeanor. Then he started just doing bizarre things. He ordered tons of food, steak, chicken, pasta, nachos, salad, and he ate all of it. But the way he was eating was so aggressive, it was like he hadn't eaten in days. By the way, at this point, we hadn't followed each other on social media. So I told him I wanted to go to the bathroom. When I got to the bathroom, I started looking up his Instagram. He had a profile, but not many pictures on it. Then I started looking through his tagged pictures, but again, nothing. It was like he didn't exist outside of the dating app. I decided I'd stay for the date, but then I wouldn't speak to him again. When I got back to the table, he started asking me a lot of questions. Like, did I live by myself? Have I ever shot any weapons? I mean, what kind of question is that on a first date? Then out of nowhere, he asked me if I wanted to go to his lake house. He quickly pulled up his phone and showed me a few pictures. I finally asked him again what he did for a living. He told me that his parents are very wealthy and they own several ranches, and that he basically did all the marketing for them. Then he abruptly ended the date. I mean, trust me, I wanted to go home anyway, but it's the way he did it. I told him I probably wouldn't have time to go to the lake house. Then he called the server over and gave them his black card, which is a pretty good indication if someone has money. Then he went to the bathroom. At this point, I just wanted to make a run for it. He comes back out, grabs his card from the server, and tells me good night. As we're walking out of the restaurant, he stops me and tries to kiss me. Of course, I turned my face away. Then he said, "Ah, you're a fighter, aren't ya?" He then got in his car and simply drove away without saying a word. The following day on the news, I hear about another missing woman. Part 3 is up. 2 of how my date turned out to be a serial unaliver. Disclaimers is not my story time. I was sending me on Instagram. If you haven't seen part 2, go watch it. The following day, I hear that another woman is missing. This is when they showed a description of the man they think kidnapped the women, and it looked exactly like my date. They even mentioned the dating app that he used, which is the same one we met on. So I decided that after work, I would go to the police myself. I spoke to the detective and gave him all the information. His name, his social media, his dating profile, and I even told him about how he behaved on the first date. Later on that night, I got home and blocked him from everything. 2 days later, the police show up to my job and told me that they caught him. And when they went to search his lake house, they found the missing women. Apparently, he would lure women to his lake house and keep them there for days, eventually unaliving them. The police told me that if I hadn't followed my instincts, I might have ended up like they did. He's now in maximum prison, and somehow he managed to send me a letter. I burnt it as soon as I got it. Apparently, he still wants to talk to me. Never trust someone you meet online.
Am I the asshole for ruining my niece's birth over a name? I, 29 female, was pregnant with twins a few years ago. Unfortunately, only one baby survived, a little boy who we called Henry, and my daughter who passed, we called her Daphne. My sister and I were close growing up, but we drifted apart. There was a rivalry on her part after I met my partner. For example, she hated that we got engaged before her. She has been with her partner for 3+ more years, and she threw a fit saying she wouldn't attend our wedding unless she was engaged too. So they got engaged, and threw an engagement party the night before my wedding. When I announced my pregnancy, she wasn't happy, as I'd done another thing before her, but when my daughter died, she seemed to be a lot nicer. Because of this change, we made her Henry's godparent. She became pregnant recently and refused to announce the name until a few days after birth. The baby girl was called Theodora, which is beautiful. I was bringing presents to her, and I saw my dad building a huge toy box with the name Daphne on it. When I questioned this, I was told the baby is going to be called Daphne and only Theodora on paper. No one will use her full name, only her nickname. All of my family knew and supported her. I got upset and started shouting, asking if this was a cruel prank. She came out and told me to F off. I don't own a name, and she liked it since my baby's funeral. My family are on her side and say, why do I care? My baby is not here, so there is no confusion, and don't see why I caused a scene and ruined her happy time, and why can't I be happy for her? They're saying I'm being petty and cruel. They want me to apologize, but I don't want to. So, am I the asshole for getting upset over choosing my dead baby's name?
Another movie recommendation. Level 16 is a movie about these young girls who live in a boarding school and they have never seen the sun, they have never seen the moon. They have never been outside. Every day they learn how to be the perfect girl with all their virtues and vices. They do the same thing every day. They clean, they take their vitamin, and they learn. And most of all, they always have to be clean. I'm guessing they start out at level 1, but they work their way all the way up to level 16. And the people that run the place tell the girls that at the end of level 16 you graduate and you get adopted by a family. But Vivian ends up not taking her vitamin one night to see what happens while they're asleep. While she's asleep, she finds out that they're not actually adopting these girls. They're auctioning them off. A person who's thinking about buying her notices how her skin has not been tainted by the sun. They kept them away from the sun and taught them how to be clean for a reason. There's so much more to this movie, and I don't really want to spoil any of it. But if you want to find out why they're being auctioned off and what's actually happening, go watch the movie. If you want to watch the movie, it's on Netflix.
Another movie that you just have to see. Maybe. Hereditary is legitimately the scariest movie I've ever seen. Gun to my head, Hereditary. It's not a jump scare type of scary. It's a very eerie something that you see in the background and you start freaking out because you realize what it is type of scary. Following the death of their grandmother, the Graham family is grieving and things just feel strange in the house because they just lost somebody. This is Charlie, one of the children of the family, and she's always making this one noise, which just makes things so freaky. If you know, you know. I hope this isn't a spoiler, but something ends up happening to another family member, and in a very gory way, and it makes the mother go a little bit crazy. So she goes to this one grieving counseling place, and there's this one woman that goes up to her and she tells her that she can talk to her loved ones that have passed. As a desperate grieving mother, she decides to try it out, but has no idea what she actually invited into her house, her soul, and her life. Throughout the movie, there are increasingly terrifying secrets that they find out about their ancestry and the sinister fate that they had inherited. Poor guy who just married into this family, he had no idea. For the people who have already seen this, right? The part that probably got me the most was like the head banging thingy, you know. It is so incredibly hard for me to explain this movie without spoiling anything. If you guys want a spoiler, let me know. If you guys want to watch it, there you go. This was such a good, well-directed movie. It was so incredibly scary. There were also a lot of naked people in it. Like, what was that about? But if I had a time machine, I'd probably go back in time and tell myself not to watch this movie so that it doesn't exist in my head and I can sleep at night. Another movie recommendation. I Am Mother is a movie about a girl who is being raised by a robot who is also her mother, and she's the last person on Earth. Well, she's actually not, but she's raised to believe that she's like humanity's last hope and that there's nobody else. So this is what her robot mother looks like. It's kind of creepy, but she makes her do all these things like take these tests, work out, and be like a perfect child. The girl has been told that the air outside is poison and everything's been destroyed and she has to stay inside. So she's never seen the sunlight or played outside. Then a stranger comes knocking on the door and she finds out that she is not the last human on Earth. Actually, it's kind of weird because they have all these fetuses like ready to be born and it takes like 20 minutes to make a baby. It's so weird. So the stranger tells the girl that her robot mother has been lying to her, and then the robot mother's like, no, this stranger's lying to you. You can't trust her. It kind of starts off slow, but it's a really cool movie to watch because of all like the AI stuff. And there's kind of a huge plot twist and something very horrifying that you find out. I would definitely say watch it. It's kind of weird. 8 out of 10. If you want to watch it, it's only on Netflix.